of ARUA, Professor Barnabas Nawenge, the Secretary General, Professor Aite, the Vice Chancellor, University of Lagos, the keynote for this morning, Vice Chancellors here present, and Deputy Vice Chancellors of ARUA member universities, directors, centers of excellence, University of Lagos management, deans, directors, faculties, conference sponsors, conference participants, the local organizing committee, students, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is with thanksgiving to God and a sense of profound responsibility that I stand before you as the chair of the local organizing committee for the 4th Biennial Conference of the African Research University Alliance to extend my warm welcome to each and everyone gathered here at the University of Lagos, the University of First Choice, and the nation's pride. The 4th ARUA Biennial Conference, thank you, has brought together experts from universities, research institutions, government, industry, civil society, and international organizations to discuss the potential ways of reimagining the future of higher education on the African continent in the coming days. Our theme for this conference, reimagine the future of higher education in Africa, resonates deeply with the transformative journey we envision for our universities. As we navigate the complexity and challenges of the 21st century, it becomes increasingly evident that the future of our nations is tied to the quality of education we provide to our students. Your role at this conference is to uniquely and significantly create a paradigm shift. Secondly, the 4th ARUA Conference will serve as a vital platform for us to engage in meaningful discussions, share groundbreaking research, and collaboratively explore innovative solutions that will shape the trajectory of higher education in Africa. Given the huge intellectual, financial, and material resources invested in staging the 4th ARUA Conference, I encourage each participant to attend keynote presentations, plenary and parallel sessions, and side events by engaging in robust discussions, and at the same time to leverage on this as a platform to build lasting academic, economic, and social connections. The venue for the keynote and plenary sessions will hold this committee room, the building to my right, and the Faculty of Law rooms. The venues are detailed in our program. If you have any questions, the members of LOC and ushers are on ground to assist you. As I bring these remarks to a close, on behalf of the entire organizing committee, our amazing Vice Chancellor, Professor Folashade Ogunshola, FAS OON, and ARUA General Secretary, Professor Ernest Aite, I want to express our deep gratitude to our sponsors for their financial and material contributions, which facilitated the seamless planning and execution of this event. Your support goes beyond mere contributions, but represents a shared vision for the growth and development of Africa continent. Once again, I say thank you. Finally, our institution is proud to host this conference. It wouldn't have been possible without each one of you seated here today. Thank you very much for your presence. Together, let us embark on this journey to reimagine and define the future of higher education in Africa. I say thank you all and God bless.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Professor Grace Otinwa, Chair of the Local Organizing Committee. It gives me now great pleasure to invite the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Folashade Ogunshola, to give us her welcome address and welcome us effectively to her university.
Professor Barnabas Nwagwe, the ARUA Secretary General, Professor Ernest Aite. Let me align myself with the protocols that have already been established. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the University of Lagos at the 4th ARUA Biennial Conference. We are privileged that you have chosen to spend these few days with us. This week, you will leave your mark on our campus, our academic community, and our city. We're simply delighted by the fact that beacons of knowledge across the African continent and beyond are convening here to rethink the future of teaching, learning, knowledge production of and for Africa. Over the years, the African Research Universities Alliance has been at the forefront of redirecting our collective thinking towards intentionally addressing the existential crisis that bedevil us as a people within the framework of global agreements while pursuing an overarching agenda to be a future. The truth, according to Achille Mbembe, 2016, we cannot keep teaching the way we have always taught. A number of our institutions are teaching obsolete forms of knowledge with obsolete pedagogies. In order to set our institutions firmly on the path of future knowledge, we need to reinvent a classroom without walls, in which we are all co-learners. A university that is capable of convening various publics in new forms of assemblies that become points of convergence of and platforms for the redistribution of different kinds of knowledge. Universities have both scanning, i.e. clarifying and defining boundaries for emerging technologies and new areas of inquiry, and raising awareness through teaching and advocacy alongside stakeholders, policymakers, and the public. Universities are the place where a desired future can be imagined. And our business today is to imagine a desired future for Africa. That if we're to elevate Africa's role in global research, technology, development, and transfer, innovation, and knowledge production, we must harness universities and their networks and other options to enable high-quality university education. Everyone is in the European Guild and other partners for prioritizing academic cooperation with Africa. Please enjoy the conference and the serene environment of our campus by the lagoon. It's a serene oasis in the vibrant city of Lagos. Enjoy yourself and have a very productive conference. Thank you and welcome again to the University of Lagos.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Vice Chancellor. I don't think we could have asked for a much more heartwarming welcome to this beautiful campus. Thank you very, very much. It's now my pleasure to invite the chair of the ARUA board to tell us whatever he wants to tell us, but focusing more on why the board agreed for us to host the conference here and on this particular theme. So, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe is Vice Chancellor of Makerere University and has been our board chair for the past 3 years. Yesterday, he decided to step down, so we've elected a new chair of the board, Professor Sizwe Mabizela from Rhodes University. So this effectively is Barnabas' last chance to address you as the board chair of ARUA. Barnabas.
Our host, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Folasade Ogonsola, the Secretary General of ARUA, who says I should speak for the last time. Our keynote speaker, Professor Adam Habib, the Chair Organizing Committee, my colleagues, the Vice Chancellors, all of you researchers and scholars, our distinguished guests and the collaborators, students, ladies and gentlemen. I want to begin by thanking the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos for making all the necessary arrangements to make our stay in this vibrant city of Lagos pleasant. Thank you very much. Indeed, I'm delighted to be back in Lagos after 30 years, exactly 30 years. Because I was here last in 1993. And I think a lot has changed. What hasn't changed is the speed of driving. I want to start my remarks with two quotations of two of Africa's prominent leaders. The first one is by Mwalimu Nyerere. Mwalimu Nyerere said, "While the rest of the world may walk, Africa must run." And I hope you understand what he meant. The second quotation is from Nelson Mandela, who said, "Education is the most sure way of transforming society." Indeed, we do believe that education is the most sure way through which we will transform Africa. Africa has gone through a number of unfortunate setbacks. To me, the biggest one was the wrong advice given to African governments by the World Bank, which claimed that higher education is a private good and that African countries need not invest in higher education. That is the worst crime committed by the World Bank against Africa. Because many African governments actually believed them. And for quite some time, governments were not investing in higher education. That actually led to the decline for some time of some of our best institutions. The World Bank has since repented and tried to make amends and encouraging governments now to invest in higher education. But I have not forgiven them. African universities and scholars and the universities have, after we realized that the World Bank was taking us the wrong way, the universities have just multiplied. From about 200 universities, we have now more than 2,500 in just 2 decades, and the number is increasing. But that is still much smaller than the number of universities in China, which has the same population as Africa. The World Bank again recently committed another crime and said if Africa wants to move out of poverty, Africa must produce 100,000 PhDs in the next 10 years. China, with the same population as Africa, produces 100,000 PhDs every year. Doesn't the World Bank know that? So why do they think that we must do in 10 years what China does in 1 year? Indeed, we as African universities must move fast and move intentionally to increase the number of researchers in Africa. And that's the only sure way we will solve Africa's problem of abject poverty. I'm very happy that I have led ARUA for the last 3 years, which I believe is now the most vibrant organization of universities in Africa that should lead that transformation. I'm happy that ARUA has brought together the best minds in Africa to try and solve these problems. I'm happy that the centers of excellence that we created are beginning to show relevance and actually are becoming very vibrant melting points of knowledge creation. I am particularly happy that most of these researchers are young people, many of them not even half my age. That is a good sign for Africa. That gives confidence that indeed universities, our researchers will lead the transformation that we all desire. I want to encourage all of you, as you do your work, to always remember the pressing issues for Africa. For me, the biggest one is our population growth. All studies show that in 50 years, every second person living on Earth will be an African. The populations of all the rest of the world is beginning to decline, while ours is just going up. So, there are questions which emerge. how will we feed that population? How shall we make sure that that population is healthy? How shall we ensure that the conflicts that seem not to leave Africa actually diminish even with that increasing population? Those are pertinent questions we have to ask. Whatever you are doing, you should always remember you are making a contribution to reducing poverty in Africa, to making Africa more stable, to making the lives of our people more meaningful. I wish you an enjoyable conference. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Nawangwe, for your very insightful remarks. Incidentally, I told you that it was his last address as board chair. It's also my last at ARUA conference. So we are going out together. Ladies and gentlemen, we are lucky. We've been joined by the Honorable Tolani Sule, who is the Lagos State Commissioner for Tertiary Education, and he will be representing the Honorable Minister of Education of Nigeria. Sir, over to you. Your address.
Good morning, everybody. I am really sorry for coming late. I have to go to Alausa first to get some further instructions, particularly with the threat of ASU strike. We thought it would have effect on this conference. Thank God that we are having it. Good morning, everybody. I am here once again. I am here to represent our governor, Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu, at this August occasion. And he would have loved to be here personally, but he is out of the country for other official engagements. Here is his message to this body. I recognize both the outgoing and incoming officers of ARUA and the entire participants here. I am delighted to join erudite scholars, experts from universities, research institutions, government, industry, civil society, international organizations, and other notable personalities at this epoch event holding for the first time in Lagos, Nigeria. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this Center of Excellence and States of Aquatic Splendor. I would like to express my appreciation to the University of Lagos for graciously hosting this event. Continue the tradition of intellectual exchange that has traversed Ghana, Nairobi, and South Africa. The theme of this conference, reimagining the future of higher education in Africa, resonates deeply with the goal of my administration to solve pressing challenges faced by indigenes of the state in pursuing tertiary education. This is because we appreciate that navigating the complexities of the modern world requires the acquisition of a higher education which is recognized as a beacon of enlightenment, guiding us towards a future defined by knowledge, innovation, and collaboration. African Research Universities Alliance has been at the forefront of driving change and innovation in higher education across Africa. Through collaborative efforts, research and knowledge sharing, African Research Universities has paved the way for transformative advancement in our educational landscape. The journey of the African Research Universities Alliance has been a testament to the power of unity in advancing education and research on the continent. Together, we have witnessed the strides made by the Alliance in creating a platform for the exchange of ideas, thus fostering collaborative research initiatives and nurturing the talents of the next generation of African leaders. Today, we stand on the path of progress where the dreams and aspirations of our students, educators, and policymakers converge. If it is a moment of immense opportunity where we have the power to create lasting impact and shape the destiny of our continent. We acknowledge the challenges that persist in the realm of higher education. Yet, within these challenges lie opportunities for transformation and progress. It is our collective responsibility to address the barriers that hinder the full realization of African academic potentials. In this mosaic of stories, we find ourselves united by a common purpose to reimagine higher education in Africa and empower the next generation of leaders. The next generation of leaders, innovators, and change makers. Together, we can break barriers, bridge gaps, and build a future that is inclusive, equitable, and prosperous. In our shared pursuit of knowledge, innovation, and excellence, our administration is reaffirming our commitment to supporting initiatives that elevate the standard of higher education in Nigeria and across Africa continent. We recognize the pivotal role education plays in shaping the destiny of our nations, and we are dedicated to investing in the future through strategic partnerships and policy that enhance the academic landscape. To ensure that our intention is backed by action, recently I signed the bills that established 2 additional universities in the state into law. These bills converted our state polytechnic to Lagos State University of Science and Technology and merged 2 colleges of education to become the University of Education. This is addition to the existing Lagos State University. All this will solve admission issues being experienced by Lagos State citizens and also encourage education tourism. Ultimately, our future aim is to make our universities centers of excellence in research, which is pivotal to fostering accelerated development through the discovery of new and sustainable solutions to our challenges, especially in critical areas, including agriculture, healthcare, and manufacturing. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Let me at this point express my appreciation to the African Research Universities Alliance, the university, that the universities that shared, ladies and gentlemen, let me at this point express my appreciation to the African Research University Alliance, the University of Lagos, and all esteemed participants for their roles in pursuing this noble cause. I enjoin each one of you to collectively engage in the discussions and collaborations that will unfold over the course of this conference. Let our collective wisdom and shared vision pave the way for a future where education is not only a gateway to opportunity, but a force that transforms societies. I thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Honorable. We've come to the point where we'll introduce our first keynote speaker for this conference. And you all have his profile in the brochure that we've given. But let me take this privilege. It's probably the last time I'm going to get the chance to introduce Adam Habib to an audience like this. First time I met Adam was in my office at the University of Ghana. He had just been appointed Vice Chancellor of the University of the Witwatersrand in South Africa. And his predecessor was taking him around Africa to introduce him to various Vice Chancellors. I thought to myself when I saw them that this must be a very rich university where the Vice Chancellor can take his successor around the region, introducing him. There was no way I could do that at the University of Ghana, but I was happy. My first impression of Adam was how forceful a character he was. When you engage Adam, you have no choice but to listen to him. Even if you don't want to listen, you hear what he's going to say anyway. Adam had a very successful term at the University of the Witwatersrand, and then moved to the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. And as I was not surprised when after a few weeks there, I learned that he was in trouble. He was in trouble for doing exactly what I've known him for, saying what everybody knows, but is afraid to say. Adam likes to say those things. Everybody knows it, and it is the truth, but everybody shies away from it because it is controversial. But Adam has been sent to deliver us all from our sins, and so be able to say for us what we are afraid to say. That is the main reason why I invited him to come and give us the first keynote address, so he would tell us what we need to know, what we need to change, but are afraid to change. Professor Adam Habib.
So colleagues, friends, I don't know whether that's a lovely introduction, but it is a delightful one. It puts me on an edge a little bit. What I thought I would do is not speak my remarks, but read them. And in part, it was because Ernest challenged me yesterday. He said to me, prove to me that you can be and speak within the time limits that you have. So I promised to do that, and I promised to make sure that I am within the time limits, and I'm going to read my remarks. But I can't help saying that on that first visit I did meet Ernest. He may say that his university couldn't afford taking the predecessor, taking the new vice chancellor around the region, but the University of Ghana, Legon, has one of the most beautiful Vice-Chancellor residences that overlooks the city of Accra in the most delightful of ways. So as you can imagine that. The chair of the board of ARUA, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Lagos, the chair of the local organizing committee, and of course, Minister and the Secretary General of ARUA. It is wonderful to be here and to have been asked to do the keynote address for this conference. I do so as a former founding member of ARUA, and now as Director, Vice-Chancellor, if you like, of a university in the United Kingdom. I do it as an African, born and grown up on this continent, but one who now resides elsewhere. Through these multiple reconcilable identities, African and human, former ARUA VC and now a VC in the University of London system, I have become aware and want to highlight our global challenges and our collective responsibility as higher education leaders in different parts of the world to build the knowledge base and professional cohorts needed to manage both our national development needs and the contemporary transnational historical burdens of our time. This is not a new message to all of you. I recall the same conversation in slightly different words at the ARUA conference in Nairobi in 2019. There, we spoke of reconciling Africa's development needs with the international community's obligation to live sustainably on this planet. There we recognized that this was dependent on the development of a human resource base and an institutional higher education infrastructure that would require a new form of equitable partnerships between our universities in Africa and those in Asia, Europe, and North America. At this ARUA conference, there were leaders there of the UKRI, at that time, Andrew Thompson and team, and the Guild of European Universities, Jan Pomwowski and his team, who heard the call and worked with Ernest and many of you to build two cutting-edge multilateral partnerships. The first emerged relatively quickly in the UK, and then partly unraveled with the exigencies of national challenges and politics. But the other persevered and continues to be built and developed. Since this conference in 2019, we have been through momentous global developments. We have had a global pandemic that required the world first to shut down and all of our universities to pivot online, or more accurately, to pivot to emergency remote learning. Since then, we also have had multiple civil and regional wars that not only had multiple spillover effects through regional political instability and creating new generations of refugees, but we've also had dramatic impacts on food security, the availability and cost of food, and the roiling and instability of energy markets. These wars have also polarized us even further as a human community, unraveling our fragile sense of collective humanity and threatening our global diplomatic and governance architecture. See what is playing out in the UN today. Today, we are even more imperiled, and our political leaders are not rising to the historical challenge we are confronted as a human community. But we, colleagues, are we as higher education leaders, as academics around the world, rising to the challenge itself? We are leaders of universities, institutions that are meant to pioneer knowledge beyond national boundaries. Yet we all are prisoners of national politics and national economics. I work in a higher education system, one that is highly recognized in our world, with an incredible set of universities, but which is significantly subsidized by charging international students, many from the global south, fees that are 3, sometimes 4 times that of domestic students. We say that we have no choice because this is the policy architecture within which we exist. And in some senses, it is true. After all, even though I complain about this, I still implement those same international fees. But at another level, I want to ask, can we not do more? Instead of defending a differential fee regime and high international fees on the grounds that students come to us because we are research-intensive universities. That's what we often say in London. Would it not be better to recognize that the real reason they come to the UK because it opens up employment markets in North America and Western Europe? It is the inequality in our world that drives student mobility far more than the research intensity of the universities of the North. And should we as leaders of higher education not be advocating against this business model of university and this political economy of higher education because of the negative consequences it has for the institutional architecture of the global academy? I have criticized myself and my colleagues in the UK, but this challenge, colleagues, applies to all of us in different ways. Our system of higher education in the UK and the parochial dynamics it breeds is no different from the one in Australia or Canada or the US and frankly, even some parts of Western Europe. And frankly, the same challenges that confront many higher education leaders on the continent. Again, let me use the example of my own country, South Africa. How different are the relations of the universities of the Anglo-Saxon world with those in the global south from that of South African universities with their peers in the rest of the continent? How different is it? Let us be honest. All of us are imprisoned by national politics and the political economy in which our institutions are embedded. This forces us to manage in a manner that prioritizes our short-term survival as institutions and universities, rather than our medium-term responsibility to build equitable transnational relations that build the global knowledge base and the professional capabilities across our world. Colleagues, things are not as bleak as I make them out to be. There are a number of initiatives underway in which some of us are trying to act in ways against the grain. The University of Witwatersrand and SOAS have just launched a doctoral degree with a new business model and a cost structure of £3,800 with no international fee. People say it can't be done. There are ways to do it. We have a number of other such transnational teaching partnerships currently being explored. The University of Pretoria and King's College have launched another teaching partnership on a different business model, but on a similar equitable basis. Evelyn Welch at Bristol University would speak of a few of their partnerships with African institutions later on, as can the universities of Edinburgh and Glasgow in the UK. It is also worth noting that ARUA and the Guild of European Universities are pioneering a wide range of doctoral and research partnerships. And ARUA itself has several other Pan-African research and teaching partnerships among all of you. We are in a far better place than we were, colleagues, 5 years ago. But I fear that these initiatives are still at the margins of our normal operations, and we are proceeding at a pace that is too slow for the challenges that we confront. This is why I underscore the challenge so starkly. Let me remind you of why these transnational teaching and research partnerships are so necessary. Our historical challenges, pandemics, climate change, inequality, migration, social and political polarization are all transnational in character. Our ability to address these challenges is dependent on us acting as a collective human community. It is critical to our survival as a human species. We must learn to swim together or we will collectively sink. If we are going to address these transnational challenges, we need to bring knowledge systems from all parts of the world in conversation with each other. How we addressed inequality in Kenya will be fundamentally different to how we address it in the UK. How we address climate change in Korea will be different to how we do it in Germany. We could not have stemmed the Ebola outbreak in West Africa a few years ago with a purely clinical approach. We needed to adopt a multidisciplinary lens to understand Muslim burial practices and how to adapt them to prevent the spread of the virus. Such global solutions, colleagues, are dependent on local knowledge. Any intervention needs to be rooted in the cultural, social, and political realities of our context. This requires academics, scientists, professionals, and other stakeholders to continuously engage and innovate across national and disciplinary boundaries, and in the process adapt global solutions to local contexts. This is what it means to suggest that science should have no boundaries. It should be a continuous process of engagement between theory and application, between the universal and the local. This is the point that was powerfully made by Professor Tanya Douglas, the former chair of biomedical engineering and innovation at the University of Cape Town, who insisted on the centrality of context in the design of scientific technologies. But formulating and adapting technologies to the contextual circumstances of the developing world is only one part of the challenge. The other is establishing the institutional infrastructure and developing the human resource capabilities to enable this to happen. We need more inventors, scientists, technologists, social actors, academics, and students. In short, innovators to develop and adapt the technologies for their circumstances. For this to happen, we need enabling environments to stimulate this. We need universities and vocational colleges that train, research, and innovate. We need companies that are entrepreneurial. We need incubators that can nurture new technologies, and we need venture capital networks that can sponsor these initiatives. At one level, we recognize this. Our policies regularly speak of the importance of inclusive and equitable and quality education. Yet we institutionally behave in a manner that deepens inequalities and institutional divides. In this era of globalization, we have more global partnerships, we have more scholarships, and more mobility across the world. Yet it is also in this period in which the brain drain has dramatically escalated. This is because a number of countries in the global north are explicitly recruiting international students from the global south, charging them a premium fee and subsidizing the costs of their higher education system domestically. Sometimes we even enable the shift of resources from the global south to the north in the name of global development. This is also accompanied by a scholarship regime directed to taking talented individuals in the developing world who then come to Europe and North America to acquire tertiary education. The assumption is, of course, that these students will return home. But the evidence of the last few decades suggests that this is not the case. When students go north, they fall in love, they have families, they get jobs, and they stay. And this is understandable because we take students and we move them in a moment of the human life cycle where they find partners and they build families. Carleton University, a Canadian institution, investigates student mobility and graduate employment across the globe. Do not return home to pursue their careers. And until 2007, the figures were even worse for China. This negative trend was only reversed in China after 2007, when its government dramatically increased investment in higher education and research. The research on the African student mobility is far more of our students do not return to the continent. The notable exception in Africa and Asia is Singapore, colleagues. In all other cases, student mobility trends works to the disadvantage of the countries of the global south. The corollary of this in the developing world is that institutions, universities included, are weakened. Human resource capacities are weakening or are not being developed, and inclusive development is being compromised. Of course, some of us speak of brain circulation rather than brain drain. But the importance of remittances to the, I'd speak of the importance of remittances to the developing world. But if we are honest, truly honest, we would recognize that these are weak counter trends that do not fundamentally change the negative institutional and structural dynamics that accompany the brain drain and compromise inclusive development in Africa and the global south. I want to hasten to argue that I'm not advocating for some autarkic retreat into nationalism, nationhood, or ethnicity. I do not believe it is possible because I am of the view that the human spirit has simultaneously an impulse to wander and explore, globalize if you like, and identify and familiarize, localize if you need to describe the term. These are not mutually exclusive agendas as populist and nativist parties would tend to suggest. Instead, they can be complementary elements of a human existence. Every one of us have families and communities whom we identify with and love. But it does not dissuade us from caring about what happens to other members of the human community elsewhere in the world. We can love our families and community networks and still practice the human solidarity outside those networks. It is possible to be both local and global. Indeed, this is essential in this era if we are meant to survive as a human species. What I am instead advocating, in line with the deliberations and decisions of the ARUA Conference in 2019, is a new form of global partnership, one that is more rooted in institutions than in individuals. Among universities, it should involve co-curriculation, co-teaching, and co-badging or co-credentialing. It should be structured on an alternative business model and fee structure that opens up opportunities for new groups of students to get access to these joint academic degrees. It is important that these programs are not entirely predicated on scholarships, so that they are not terminated when donor money dries up. There has to be a self-sustaining logic to the operations and business architecture of the programs itself. In essence, colleagues, the argument here is not to stop the mobility of students, but to complement it with institutional partnerships that enable training in the countries of the Global South. This transnational training must be undertaken not to compete with universities in these countries, but in collaboration with them. The strategic purpose is to enable a continuous cycle of institutional development and learning across the universities of our world, and in particular across institutions in the global north and global south. The central purpose is to bring higher education and postgraduate training to wider and wider social groups in the global south, and thereby create the basis and foundation for a more comprehensive, universally responsive knowledge production system. Only then will we be able to address the global challenges of our time. The great historic task of our historical moment is to develop institutional capacities and to build human capabilities across the world to address our transnational challenges. This is the historic task that confronts us all. It is the historic task not only of politicians or political leaders, but of all of us as university leaders across our world. Many of us may indeed have to navigate the challenge of institutional financial sustainability. God, I know about this. But we must never undertake that responsibility in a manner that is blind to our historical obligation to build human capabilities and institutional capacities across our world. Humanity's greatest economic, social, and technological leaps have their roots in our darkest hours. We are indeed in one such dark moment. Significant parts of our world are plunged in war. Our planet is confronted with environmental collapse. Our economic systems are structurally unequal and enable deep, deep immiseration as much as they do incredible individual wealth. We as a human community have never been as polarized as we are today. And yet our challenges require a universal collaboration, a collective human empathy, an inclusive science and scholarship that is responsive to all of our interests across the world. All of this seems so distant at present. But we as a human community have often grasped the mantle of innovation to overcome our greatest challenges in the most dire of our times. This, however, has and will not happen without leadership and will. This ultimately is the greatest challenge that confronts us all today. It is a challenge that we confront today as we begin the deliberations in this 4th ARUA International Conference at the University of Lagos. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Adam Habib, Director of the School of Oriental and African Studies. So what Adam basically is encouraging us all to do is be more innovative as we think about higher education and the links between the global South and North in order to avoid what we've seen as some of the negative consequences from Thank you very much, Adam. What I forgot to say in my introduction of Adam was the fact that he and Max Price were the great initiators of ARUA. If there's ARUA today, they were the people who thought about it and then invited the rest of us to join. So Adam knows the roots, and he knows the challenges, and also still has ideas about the solutions. So thank you very, very much. We are about to break for tea, but let me invite the Honorable Representative of the State Commissioner for Tertiary Education, Honorable Tolani Sule, to formally declare the conference open before we break for tea.
Thank you very much. Once again, on behalf of Mr. Governor, Mr. Olushola Babajide Sanwo-Olu, I welcome all of you to Lagos, Nigeria, and I wish you a beautiful stay, robust academic discussions and collaborations. It is on the permission of the local organizing committee, the Vice Chancellor, and all other leaders of this conference, that I am declaring open the 4th biannual ARUA Conference holding in Lagos, Nigeria, particularly in University of Lagos. Thank you and God bless.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we now take a 20-minute break. In the program is 30 minutes, but we are running late, so we take a 20-minute break. Thank you. Okay, all right.
We need to tell them.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Please, you will take the stairs to the back.